Here's what we learned how to make in this video. Hello there, my inspirations. My name is Inspirasper, and in this video, I wanted to walk you through how you can make a tropical house inspired track like you heard in the beginning of this video. Now, a quick disclaimer I'd like to throw out there. This is just my personal take on the genre. The point of this video is just to be used as a resource for you, as I go through and dissect this track layer by layer, and really just see the breakdown of what makes this song sound the way it does. Real quick, I'd like to give a shout out to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. They are a super cool online learning community, so if this video leaves you wanting to learn more, click the link in the description below to check them out and get started with a free 2-month trial. More on that later at the end of this video, but for now, let's get into making this tropical house style track. First things first, in order to make this tropical house style drop, I set my BPM to 115. Now, I'd like to cover my layer of percussion. This is what really drives the beat of this drop. Fairly straightforward, but let's break this down. To make this, I simply laid out a few samples that I found. You can find kick samples pretty much anywhere. I stacked my samples on top of each other and I arranged them so they hit every quarter bar. And then on top of that, in terms of audio effects, again, I'm going simple here. I'm really just aiming for high-level stuff. I added a glue compressor to bind these two samples together, and then one of Ableton's default kick EQs, just to give a little boost in the low ends and also some flavor in the higher frequencies. Next, we have our layer of claps. So I went and I found these samples and then arranged them in the following pattern. And then yes, as you can see here at the end, I also tacked on one more sample for a little bit of variety. In terms of audio effects, I put on a stereo finalizer just to add a little bit of stereo width, an EQ to boost some high frequencies, and the tiniest bit of compression. So then here's what this layer sounds like when combined with our previous layer of kicks. Next, I threw a layer of hi-hats into the mix. In my case, I used 3 different samples. One right here, which is playing at the same time as our layer of kicks. And then on our offbeat, I threw on 2 more samples of hi-hats, which altogether, by themselves, sound like this. So then now, altogether, our layer of percussion sounds like what we heard at the beginning, which, as a reminder... One more piece I forgot to mention that you may have caught when I played that back. We do have one more layer on top of everything, which is a reversed kick sample. If I remember correctly, I think this is actually the same exact kick sample as our layer of kicks, and then just reversed, just to add a little bit of flow to our beat. But only every now and then. I use it sparingly. So that's sounding pretty good. Now let's move on to our layer of chords. In this case, here's what my layer of chords sound like in this tropical house style drop. To make this, I started by writing my chord progression. Then I went to focusing on the rhythm of the chords, and I arranged them in the following pattern, which I really liked when played side by side with my layer of percussion. From here, I went to stacking multiple layers on top of each other. This layer, as you can already tell, is a layer of piano, which has some significant processing on top of it. Another layer I tacked on, using this same exact chord progression, was this layer of staccato strings. Finally, I also tacked on one more layer. I then grouped these layers together, put on some glue compression, EQing, what have you, in addition to some side chaining to our layer of kicks. This allows our percussion to shine through the mix a little bit better. Now, altogether, our layer of chords and percussion sound like this. For reference, if you were to remove the sidechaining on the chords altogether, now that's sounding pretty good, but it can use a little bit more. So let's go ahead and move into our layer of bass. Our layer of bass provides the punchy, powerful feeling of this track. In this case, I have 3 layers of bass, which all together sound like this. Which is the same exact MIDI arrangement as our layer of chords, just minus the notes on top. In this case, we're just grabbing the root note, the tonic. This does a few things. 1, it keeps the music theory that I want, so everything's still in key. And 2, our bass is now actually triggering at the same rhythm as our layer of chords, meaning everything will play well together. So now let's go through our layer of bass. First, I have my layer of sub bass. This is pretty subtle. You might not be able to hear this if you're not listening with headphones. But this is the rumble of my layer of bass. Now that's pretty simple. You won't go too far with just a sub bass, so let's throw one more layer on top of that. In this case, I have this layer of bass, what I called the mids. Now this is the driving force of the bass. I think this is the sound you mostly hear when listening to the bass layers isolated. But we can make everything just a little bit nicer by adding even a 3rd layer of bass on top of everything. This just adds a little bit of color on top of our whole bass group. Now, in terms of audio effects, I'd recommend on your sub bass, you put on an EQ to isolate only the low frequencies. Maybe say anything below 100 hertz. Similarly, you're gonna wanna make your sub bass in mono sound. An easy way to do this in Ableton is drag on a utility audio effect and click this button to toggle mono. And altogether, my layer of bass, chords, and percussion sound like this together. But now let's go one step further and throw on our layer of leads. Altogether, here's what my layer of leads sound like. Now, I won't go through every layer that I have here. There's a good bit to go through. However, I will try to go through high level and call out the layers I think are most important to point out. For example, here I have a group that I called synths. I suppose these are my plucky, vocally xylophone sounds. Cool. I also have a category here called flutes. These are virtual synthetic flutes that are meant to emulate someone playing the instrument. And there you go for the leads. Again, I know it was very fast, rapid fire, but hopefully that gives you a general picture on something you're shooting for here. So now my layer of leads, bass, chords, and percussion which is sounding good. I'm liking this so far, but it does feel like there's something missing. There's a little bit we can throw in to fill this out a little bit more. So 2 more layers I'd like to call out, one of them being a layer of arps. This is an arpeggiator that's sifting through our chord progression. Which, granted, is a little too much. I think it needs to be toned down ever so slightly. So to make this a little bit more subtle, I tacked on this big processing rack, which essentially muffles the sound, adding a good bit of reverb and echo. So now, this is one of those layers that when everything's playing in the whole mix, you can't quite pick it out unless you know it's there. Then once it's taken out, something doesn't quite feel right. Now, one more piece that I went to throwing into this drop was a layer of miscellaneous sound effects. These are audio samples that really fill out the missing frequencies in this drop. This includes a layer of crowd cheering, some static white noise, and some big fills. Now, these are super important because I think this gives the tropical house feel that we're also looking for, including this really big snap, a layer of chimes, and some other fills, such as this snap roll and this fill right here. So altogether, we have this big group of sound effects that's sidechained to our layer of percussion that collectively sounds like this. So let's play our track without this group of sound effects and then turn it on and see what it contributes and adds to this drop. So let's turn it on and off and then on again. And there you have it. That's how you make a tropical house-ish inspired drop in Ableton Live. Again, my goal is simply to lay it out there for you to use as a resource, maybe to inspire you to make something of the sort. Now, if you want to keep the ball rolling and continue to learn more about music production, consider looking into this video's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators, and viewers of this channel will love what they have to offer. You just watched a tutorial on how to make a tropical house track made by someone who casually makes music as a hobby. Imagine the things you'd learn from certified professionals. And you can do so by checking out one of the more than 25,000 classes Skillshare has to offer on topics such as music, design, technology, and more. Skillshare's premium membership gives you unlimited access, so you can join whichever community you so desire, drop in and out of lessons, and overall, master exactly what it is you've set out to learn. Plus, Skillshare is super affordable. An annual subscription comes down to be less than $10 a month. And on top of that, if you use the link in the description below, you will get a 2-month free trial. So, join the more than 7 million creators learning with Skillshare today. Whether you want to fuel your curiosity, creativity, or even career, Skillshare is the perfect place to keep you learning and thriving in today's modern world. Thank you so much for sponsoring this video and channel, Skillshare. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.